You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I'm going to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visual as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we get to jump right into the conversation, and it is, of course, permeating the national airwaves, and that is Greg Sankey deciding to pull his inner Paul Feinbaum and put his foot so far in his mouth that, of course, requires conversation. Naturally, Greg Sankey has been the forefront of some of the CFP conversations over the years, and he was also one of the first individuals to break ground in the conversation of the NCAA being less and less meaningful and every conference having the opportunity at some point in time to essentially move on from the NCAA. On top of that, he's also been the forefather and presenting the narrative that the SEC is the king dingling in all things. And now the Big 12 hasn't exactly done their part in living up to some expectations along the way that could have curtailed the conversation more towards the Big 12. Thinking of TCU. Yeah, they beat Michigan, but what they did in the national title game didn't work out so well from a perception standpoint. Texas versus Arizona State. Arizona State outplayed them in the second half, but at the end of the day, it didn't really amount to much because it was still a loss. Houston playing Florida in basketball for the national championship. It's great that we got there. It's great that we statistically outperformed the SEC, but at the end of the day, they did get the natty. And I think a lot of this Greg Sankey posturing is primarily because he understands that the landscape has changed. And is there a degree of separation between the Big 12, the ACC, and the other two power conferences? Absolutely. But ironically enough, the Big Ten is not being this ridiculous in regards to the future of college football. We have to ask ourselves, why would Greg Sankey want to absolutely destroy the sport? Of course, he is saying that he's simply out here doing what's best for the SEC. But is it good for the SEC if college football completely falls by the wayside? I mean, it's definitely not the sport that we all grew up loving. And we understand that the SEC likes to pride himself as the top of the heap, yet the Big Ten has won the national championship the last 2 years in a row. You're not seeing this same ridiculousness out of Big Ten country. Thankfully, we do have Brett Yormarks. And just like the Big Ten has discussed about potentially bringing in a third-party entity to help financially stave off some of the future realignment snafus, it still doesn't equal what Greg Sankey is doing. And this seems like, to me, a flailing version of Greg Sankey, understanding that his control is less and less. How ironic is it that he mentions having the best conference and playing the toughest schedules, and this is the same conference that schedules Mercer and the Citadel and Chattanooga every single year. Just like there's understanding that the SEC is very good, but they're also very top-heavy. You take away the LSUs, the Alabamas, the Georgias, and recently the Tennessees and the Texases of the world, and you basically have the same competition level as most everybody else. The difference is there has been years of posturing, and there's been years of this SEC chant being shoved down our throat. Now it's time for Brett Yormarks and the Big 12 to respond. Again, we've had opportunities to put ourselves on a more national forefront, but we haven't been able to always do that. I think as you look towards baseball, this is another opportunity for the Big 12 to make some waves, but we'll talk about that more in segment 3. It is time for Brett Yormarks to do one of those visionary level things, whether it be the Dr. Pepper naming rights of the Big 12 or that third-party entity that could financially step in. And even if they have a percentage of the conference, if you're looking for future viability, we need to do something. And when I say we, obviously Brett Yormarks needs to do something. And of course, we as a conference, we have to find a way to back the brand that Brett Yormarks is selling. But since he's received his new 3-year deal, we haven't really heard a whole lot out of Brett Yormarks. And even if it was just conversational pieces moving the needle at certain points in time, talking about UConn and Gonzaga joining the conference in basketball, was it a viable option? Maybe. Was it going to be the best option? Maybe not. But at the end of the day, he was in those conversations. And this is the same Brett Yormarks that kind of silently pulled the assassin moves to get rid of the Pac-12. Now, is he going to be able to get rid of the SEC? Absolutely not. Or the Big Ten? No. But a shakeup is a possibility. At one point in time, Arkansas was really close to joining the Big 12. We missed that boat due to that commissioner. And there has been conversations about how the Tennessees of the world do not belong in the SEC, this and that and the other. Now, I do think that trimming fat will inevitably be part of this conversation. And maybe that's more posturing being presented right now by Greg Sankey, is to help more of the lesser teams in the SEC. But let's face it, if the SEC was in fact the number one conference in control of everything, like is being purported by Greg Sankey, then he wouldn't have the need to be desperate. He wouldn't have the need to act out of this degree of insecurity. I don't think it's any question that the SEC is not going to be knocked down at any point in time in the near future. However, there have been instances, I recall Major League Soccer went through some difficulties not too long back. And ironically enough, fans all across the country kind of stood up and they made it to where that wasn't allowed to take place after all. This is an instance where ACC fans, Big 12 fans, and yes, there have been some SEC fans and Big Ten fans that have all collectively said that some of the things Greg Sankey is doing is probably not great for the future of college football. And if you get rid of all of college football, or you find a way to torpedo it to where it's just the Big Ten and the SEC, you're alienating so many portions of fans across the country. Is it going to matter to Alabama and Georgia fans? No, it's not. But the sport in and of itself has grown because of those Cinderella stories. Every single sport grows more and more every year, more often than not, because fans around the country want to see underdogs, the Cinderella stories, take down some of the blue bloods. And in a world where Greg Sankey is trying to make it to where blue bloods have all of the control and all of the say, which is obviously now being even more so brought to light, of course, you're going to have the Lane Kiffins of the world that are moaning and complaining. And then you had Kalen DeBoer mention it. Well, if teams around the country had our schedule, I bet they would think differently. Again, if everybody in the country, including Big 12 land, if we could schedule the Citadel and Mercer and Chattanooga and Valdosta State at the back end of every season, our records would likely look different as well. Like the idea that every team in the SEC is so competitively, evenly matched that it just means more, it's a fallacy. It's a fallacy being purported more often than not by guys like Paul Feinbaum and Greg Sankey. And we know Paul Feinbaum is just a mouth-breathing buffoon. So why is Greg Sankey turning into the exact same thing? My guess is he can see that other conferences are doing some things to add some relevancy to their potential future. And that doesn't sit well with Greg Sankey. So Greg Sankey would rather grenade everything, pretending that that is what's best for his member institutions, without realizing that it's going to have negative ramifications all across the country. So it's not wild to see some outlets and some representatives and fan bases from other countries do not align with this. This is the greedy trying to become greedy yet again and get more of the pie. Because if they have more teams in, they feel like by process of elimination, it'll equal bigger results. Well, March Madness didn't exactly prove that. It was loaded more so than ever with SEC teams. And yes, Florida did win the Natty, but by a percentage basis, the Big 12 did better. And I think things like that, alongside the fact that the Big Ten's won the last new national championships, does have Greg Sankey in a little bit of a more awkward position than he thought he was going to be in. So he needs to stay at the forefront, pretending that the SEC is the king ding-a-ling of all things in every single sport, because it's about more marketability. So if this is how the marketability game is going to go, Brett Yormark needs to take his silent assassin approach and make another move here. Do something that is going to help the Big 12 moving forward. Whether it's a UConn or a Gonzaga or a massive shakeup that you're going to go steal a team from another conference, or you're going to add Allstate, Dr. Pepper, whatever, third-party equity. Some of these things that have been mentioned previously might need to start taking place in order for the Big 12 to also be in this conversational piece. We have to do our part. But we also need our commissioner to do what the last couple of Big 12 commissioners were unable to do, and that is to help with the future of the conference in a real, physical, tangible way. This is a war. He won the war with the Pac-12. Now it's time to pick a fight with Greg Sankey in the SEC because he's going to destroy you and this conference and every other conference if he has his way. Greg Sankey will try to torpedo many things along the way if he has his way, just like you can help your bank account not be torpedoed by watching the NBA playoffs. Of course, our Thunder took a 3-1 lead, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and cannot miss moments, whether it's in-game winning, big shots, breakout players. There's never been a better time for you to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy for you to stay in the game before tip-off and even live during the event. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have even more ways now to win bigger than ever. What would it look like to combine live prop bets mid-game based on the action that is unfolding? If you've got a read on what player is about to pop off for a massive game, why not back it up in a same-game parlay? How could a $200 bonus back and bonus bets add to the excitement of your first $5 bet? If you're new to FanDuel, this is the best time to sign up. Head on over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 back in bonus bets. Get that $200 back in bonus bets today. Make every moment matter more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. The Cowboy baseball postseason play is in effect. And thankfully, I feel like this is a decent draw, right? We do get to start with Duke, and Duke is a quality ball club. But I feel like if you can string everything together, from an athletic standpoint alone, Oklahoma State is significantly ahead of Duke. Now, athleticism doesn't always equate to winning baseball, but the Cowboys have won, 13 of our last 15 ball games. We found a way to kind of string together different starting pitchers that have different capabilities. The middle relievers is hit and miss, right? Whether we have a lockdown closer, Gabe Davis might be that guy. Regardless, if you can take down Duke, which I think that we have the staff to do so, and we've been hitting better as the season has kind of come to a close here, we can definitely get past Duke. And if you do find a way to get past the 2 seed, the Duke Blue Devils, then you're likely to be matched up with Georgia. Now, Georgia does lead the country in home runs, so we're not sitting here saying that, oh, great, this is an awesome draw. So nice to have Georgia. But when you look at some of the other teams around the country, like originally there's reports out that we would end up playing Georgia Tech at their regional in Atlanta. Well, they didn't even get a 16 host site. So, that didn't really work out. Then there was something put out that we'd go to Florida State and play in the Tallahassee regional. And some of those had different layers of fun to them. Like we could have potentially played Bama or Florida if we'd gone to one of those two destinations. But we end up with Georgia. And yes, they do hit a lot of bombs. But if you also can limit their offensive prowess, aka you can induce an overabundance of ground balls, you're going to give yourself an opportunity. And somebody like Mario Pesca, just the way that his movement is orientated around the plate, he typically is pretty good about inducing ground balls. So that could be a viable option. As long as we don't throw Hunter Watkins. Hunter Watkins has ace-level stuff. He has major league level abilities, but he's prone to giving up a bomb or two often. It might be the only big hit he gives up, but he'll give up 3-run bombs, unfortunately, far too often. And against Georgia, that is a worst-case scenario. So if you do throw out, whether it be a Sean Youngerman or a Mario Pesca, and you get to that game, If you can induce ground balls and you can limit errors and have some success with runners in scoring position and manufacture some runs, play a little bit of small ball here and there, you're going to give yourself an opportunity. Georgia Tech is, in my opinion, maybe a more complete team than Georgia. Oklahoma State has cut its teeth for years on being a bang or bust, long ball or die style of ball club. And that's kind of what Georgia is. Georgia is a power team. Oklahoma State is a power team. This has not been a very good season for us at the plate hitting. So the team averages and the individual averages are not great. But it's all about peaking at the right time, right? I bring this up quite often. Florida rolled into the Stillwater Regional Tournament last season as basically a 500 ball club. They were like 28 and 27 or something to that effect. But they had an epic run in the SEC tournament, and that's the only reason they made it to regional play. Oklahoma State was one of the last 4 teams in. 3 Big 12 teams were three of the last 4 teams in, ironically enough. The Big 12 disrespect this year is pretty wild. It's the first year in like 15 years that we don't have a host site. And we kind of did that to ourselves. If West Virginia and KU would have played in the Big 12 championship postseason tournament game, perhaps one of them is looking at a host site, or if not, maybe both of them. But the fact that it ended up with Arizona winning, the whole daggone thing wasn't beneficial. The same could have been said for TCU. Maybe if TCU wins that, they could be a possible host site. But Arizona winning kind of booted a lot of us out of there. Nonetheless, we just talked about the Big 12 needing to hold up its end of the bargain for Brett Yormark. This is another opportunity. TCU has the ability to make a run, in my opinion. So does Arizona. They're on the other side of the bracket. Ironically enough, the other 6 Big 12 teams are on the same side of the bracket. So the deeper the runs go, the bigger the opportunity is that we have Big 12 teams end up playing against each other on one side of the bracket, which is slightly unfortunate. On the other side of the bracket, if you ask me, Arizona and TCU seem to have pretty reasonable routes to get there, just like Oklahoma State has a very reasonable route to get to super regionals. And that's all you can ask for at this time of the year. We're essentially, in my opinion, we're playing with house money right now. And we could have gone to a regional against a team that played a better brand of both small ball and power ball. But I do feel like if you're going to have a draw, Georgia's one of the better draws because they're slightly one-dimensional. They're going to have a lot of big, strong power arms, but typically so do we, so it shouldn't be foreign territory to us. We should have more than enough pitching to get to that game against Georgia. I mean, we're probably underestimating Duke. Yeah, very well, could be. But when you look at the roster of the Oklahoma State Cowboys and you factor in the way that we've been playing the last 2.5 weeks, we can be a deadly ball club. In the Big 12 tournament, we didn't play sound baseball. Unfortunately, leading up to the Big 12 tournament, we were doing much better on driving runs in and stringing some together some beneficial hits. But it'll be a fun ride for Rob Walton nonetheless. And this is his last hurrah. So perhaps we might see our pitching performance uptick a little bit, as opposed to the opposite sometimes happening in postseason play for Cowboy baseball. We're playing with house money. We barely made it in. I mean, there was portions of the year where we weren't even going to make the Big 12 tournament. Then we make the Big 12 tournament and we make a little noise, not enough, but enough to get in a regional. And then we get a regional that actually is somewhat advantageous it's a big if, of course, but if you can keep Georgia from launching multiple home runs, you're going to have a shot. And talent has never been a question about this Josh Holliday-led baseball team. And since we are playing with house money with very little expectations, would this not be the most opportune time ever to actually make a regional run? Cowboy golf is not only making a regional run, we have officially just punched our ticket to play Virginia tomorrow for the national title in golf. Yeah, it was funny. OU fans this morning were saying we're going to go after O State today, and then we're going to have a chance to play for a natty. By the evening, OU fans were saying, "Who cares about golf? We don't care." The irony of that, I'll let you have your own fun with, but nonetheless, it went down to the wire between us and Ole Miss. We played several extra holes, and it was getting kind of dark. And shout out to Lee. What a massive putt. Of course, Preston Stout continued to do his thing, taking on and beating the dude who won the individual national championship as of yesterday. So coming into this thing, right, this was a pretty heroic effort. We were 12th place 2 days ago. Then we bumped to 7th. Then we bumped to 5th. Then we get in that top 4 spot. Then we go to match play. We had moments in the beginning where it looked like we were going to run away from Ole Miss and secure our spot in the Natty pretty early. That didn't happen. It went back and forth, back and forth. Shout out to Ole Miss. A pretty cool interview with their coach afterwards. But I got to throw some apologies to Alan Bratton. Obviously, the last couple of years have not been up to the standards of Cowboy golf. So was this on the bucket list? Now, we'd mentioned earlier in the year about potential sports that could get us to national championship number 54. Cross country was part of that conversation. Tennis was part of that conversation. Wrestling was kind of part of that conversation. Golf was kind of part of that conversation. But I'll be realistic with you. Alan Bratton has surprised the tar out of me. Not only that, the biggest benefit, whether we win the national championship tomorrow or not, we're doing this with freshman, sophomore, freshman, junior. Our whole team is ridiculously young. So barring any crazy transfer stuff, we should have the same opportunities to play for a national championship, not only next season, but for the foreseeable future in the next few years. And the reason why you don't typically stress too much about having transfers leave is because this is a golf school. This will be our 12th national championship if we were to take down Virginia tomorrow. And this is the beauty of match play. You know, the first time this presented itself, I remember being irate because I think we came into match play day with like a 11, 12 stroke lead or something like that. And then you basically cancel all that out, and then you have match play. And match play, it's kind of the great equalizer. So as much as I didn't like it in the beginning because it screwed us, right? We were well on our way to another national championship, and then match play happened. And match play is your best against their best. It's an individual on individual. It's a pretty cool thing. And now the Cowboys have the opportunity to beat Virginia today. Did Virginia outplay Oklahoma State today? Yeah. Yeah, they probably did. And they beat a high-ranked Florida team that a lot of people had pegged to be in the national championship match. But this is the beauty of match play, is what happened today doesn't really matter. What happened the last 3 or 4 days technically doesn't even really matter. It's about the individual play. Now, if Fang can have a big day, this could be huge. Lee was probably not expected to be the guy that sealed the deal for the Cowboys today. Everyone's going to talk about Preston Stout, as they should. Yeah, Phillip struggled there for a little bit, but nonetheless, all of the dudes came through in the end when it mattered the most to put us in a position to compete for a national championship. And the beauty of match play is it's all still out in the open. It's still very, very achievable for Oklahoma State, regardless of how today went, regardless of how much you had to battle to even get to today. We came into the day playing OU as the lower seed for essentially what was house money. It has been a pretty tumultuous 2005 for Cowboy country, including the end of 2024 football. So this is a breath of fresh air. This is definitely welcomed and needed. And you know what? Go get national championship number 54, because if so, we're going to be having the conversation about the Cowboys winning multiple natties over the next 3 to 4 years, because most of these dudes are all freshmen and sophomores. So It's an exciting time, and it would realistically be a big boost to the Oklahoma State 2025 season, because outside of wrestling, J.C. Hoyt's women's basketball team made some massive improvements, but when it came into tournament time, obviously things kind of derailed a little bit. Cowboy basketball making it to the NIT was a pretty big deal. Winning a couple games in the NIT, icing on the cake. But this is a big boost in the cap if the Cowboys can go ahead and seal this thing up and pull it off. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, I love you. Golf. God bless. Golf bless too. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you liked it, dislike button if you didn't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe my podcast from people out there. You're everything that makes this work. I appreciate you. Do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave a review. Alrighty, y'all. Later, taters.